Hi, folks. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us here for our State Policy Action Zoom meeting. My name is Jeff Garris. I am the Outreach and Partnerships Director here at the Pennsylvania Policy Center, where every month on the third Thursday, which is what is today, it is the earliest third Thursday you can get in the month. It's the 15th. At 1 p.m., we do these meetings for folks all across Pennsylvania who want to learn more about some of the policies that are impacting people's lives, policies that could help to improve the lives of all Pennsylvanians, as well as policies that are a real threat to some of the things that we value most here in Pennsylvania. So we try to take a little bit of time to take a little bit more of a deeper dive into some of the policies, look at some of the legislation that is being introduced or being considered around this, and then give an opportunity for folks to hear from some of the people who are leading the advocacy efforts about how you and folks you know can get involved in efforts to really improve the lives of all Pennsylvanians with really important policy proposals that can have far-reaching impacts. Again, I'm Jeff. I'm here with my colleagues from the Pennsylvania Policy Center. Adrian Stanley is our Deputy Comms Director who is handling our Zoom meeting. So if you have any technical questions or issues, feel free to send a note in the chat to Adrian. Speaking of the chat, that is where we are going to be taking questions today. Because of the large number of folks we have in the room, we want to make sure everybody's able to hear. So we've muted all of your lines. If you have a question, though, at any point in the meeting, feel free to type it in the chat. We will be presenting those questions to our speakers today. And we'll talk a little bit about our speakers today. But first, I want to start off with a quick introduction for a very important update from our Executive Director at the Pennsylvania Policy Center, my colleague, Mark Steer. Mark?
Thanks, Jeff. And while I know this is our state call, I thought we couldn't totally ignore what happened in the federal government in the last 2 days. So I want to give you a very brief update about what the reconciliation bill looks like as of this moment after the House Energy and Commerce, Agriculture and Ways and Means committees have acted. And I'm going to be very brief. I will put some pieces up where we consider it at more depth in the chat, and we have a new piece coming out probably in about an hour. So if you want to check our website, penpolicy.org, and look at the blog, you'll be able to see that. So I think the best way to summarize what happened is, if this reconciliation bill is passed with the tax cuts that mostly go to the very wealthy, deep cuts to Medicaid and to SNAP, and a bunch of other things that are not good but are on different level, we will see the greatest redistribution of income from the bottom and the middle to the top in American history. This is far worse than what the 2017 tax cuts did, for two reasons. Number one is the tax cuts are even deeper. Some of this is not as apparent because what they've done is to meet the requirement of the budget resolution that the tax cuts not be over a certain amount. They've extended some of the new things only for a few years, but they have every intention of extending them further. As a result, the tax cuts will lead, when fully implemented, to almost $5 trillion over 10 years, if you account for the additional interest payments that come from running up the deficit and running up the debt. That's a huge amount of money. And this is not 2017. Our economy, despite what Trump says, is in relatively good shape. We're bringing in as much revenue as we're going to bring in. These tax cuts are going to need more revenue, but instead what we're going to see is a massive increase in the public debt. And ultimately, at some point, we can't keep adding to the debt, especially when Donald Trump is undermining the dollar as a reserve currency for other countries around the world. If you turn to the budget cuts, the cuts to Medicaid and the failure to extend the Affordable Care Act enhanced tax credits will lead to about 13.7 million people losing their health coverage over the next 10 years. And in Pennsylvania, the number for just Medicaid is about 380,000 people losing their health insurance. If you add in the people on our healthcare exchange penny, who will likely lose it because they're going to lose the subsidies they get to make that insurance affordable, we're probably talking about 548,000 people in this state losing health coverage. That's horrible. Um, there are 2 million people on SNAP as well, and because of the way they're cutting SNAP with added work requirements, um, and because they're going to ask for the state to contribute a share, um, anywhere from 300,000 to all of those people may lose SNAP. If the state share is as under law it might be $1 billion a year to get the $4.7 billion of SNAP benefits that the state gets every year, it is not clear the state can come up with that $1 billion. We're already in a fiscal crisis in the state that politicians don't really want to talk about, but it's true. We're spending way more money than we bring in every year, and we're drawing down our surplus from the uh, pandemic relief funds to do that, but that surplus is only going to last another 2.5 years, which is when these big cuts kick in. So again, anywhere from 300,000 to everyone. If the state shares $1 billion and we can't come up with that, we don't lose the $1 billion. We lose the whole federal contribution, which right now is 4.7 billion, 4.7 billion every single year, and that's from now until for the next 10 years. So it could be everyone loses SNAP, it could be half the people lose SNAP, or some combination of half the people and a cut in the SNAP benefit, which is already very low. It's like $5.85 per person to pay for your food a day. So these are astonishingly bad policy ideas. They're astonishingly harmful to working people in the state. And keep in mind, you may not be on food stamps, you may not be on SNAP, you may not be on Medicaid, but when we talk about 2 million people on SNAP and 3 million people on Medicaid, that's as of this moment. Very few people are on either of those programs for a very long time, which means that over 4 or 5 years, 2 to 3 times as many people as are on the program right now will benefit. So ultimately, it's not just 3 million people losing Medicaid. It could be 6 million. It's not 2 million losing SNAP. It could be 4 million people. And then when you take into account that Medicaid pays for nursing homes and assisted living and in-home care for seniors, like 60% of seniors, that means 60% of us at some time in Pennsylvania are going to lose the ability to age decently because the money that supports all this kind of senior care could be entirely lost. So I'm going to stop there. If there's a quick question, I'll take it. I've got another meeting I've got to go to, and I just want to let you know how bad it is. I put up one paper. I'll put up some other papers in the chat, and go check out our website later today because there's going to be even more stuff coming up soon. So let me stop there. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you.
Thanks so much, Mark, for this really pretty sobering update. I don't see any questions in the chat. We'll give folks just a couple seconds here if anyone wants to type anything in. We know that you need to get to another meeting. I don't see any right now, but I will start doing a quick introduction of our other guests here who are joining us today. If I see a question come in the next few seconds, Mark, we'll pose it to you. But let's move on to talk a little bit about some of the folks who are joining us here today to talk about some really important issues facing all of us in Pennsylvania, and particularly to facing folks who are at risk of being marginalized. And we are really pleased to have with us today two guests, two allies who are very actively involved with our Pennsylvanians Together campaign, pushing some really important policy ideas across Pennsylvania. But these two folks bring some really important expertise to our meeting today. We're going to be hearing today from Adam Hosey, who is the Policy and Political Director for Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates. And then we'll be hearing from Gillian Kratzer, who is the Deputy Director for Better Pennsylvania. I don't see any questions here, and it looks like Mark has left, so we'll turn it right over to you, Adam. Go ahead.
Thanks, everyone. Once again, my name is Adam Hosey, Policy Political Director here at Planned Parenthood Pennsylvania Advocates. Excuse me, I use he, him pronouns. So just to give a little overview of Planned Parenthood in Pennsylvania, we have 3 affiliates, Western, Keystone, and Southeast, who have 24 health centers, Pennsylvania. And we do a lot of care there, but at the same time, at the height of abortion access in Pennsylvania, there were over 145 places in PA that you can get an abortion, and now we are down to about 17. So that's PA here, and I know Mark was talking about a lot of scary things, and it is right in front of us, and with the strike of a couple of votes, as we lose Medicaid access, if we lose Medicaid access, we would also be losing Planned Parenthoods in Pennsylvania. We would love to be in all places across this map, Center County, Erie, all over the place. In the past decade, I know we've closed places in Bucks, Scranton, other places in NEPA, but it really is just a dollars and cents thing. We do about $7 to $8 million in unreimbursed care each year already because we don't turn away patients, no matter where you live, how old you are, how much money you make, your immigration status. We are providing care for you, and that's why a lot of people like. A few very loud people really dislike us. Taking a look at the national landscape, you'll notice that all these dark red states went red after Dobbs, after we lost the protection of Roe v. Wade. So what we see in Pennsylvania is what we call kind of like an I-95 corridor. So as we come from the South and all those states that straight up banned abortion or made it much more restrictive, they're coming up 95 to places like Maryland, Delaware, Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, to receive life-affirming care. And even in places like New York, we get patients from New York as well, because New York is very hard to get an appointment now too, because there's so many folks coming in from out of state to get abortion care. And obviously we know that abortion care is time sensitive. So if you can get an appointment in PA, you're going to drive 6 hours, 7 hours from Buffalo to Philadelphia to get that appointment, because that is how vital it is. You'll also notice that Pennsylvania is in the bottom half of this. So we are looking at an orange restrictive state for abortion access. And why is that? That is because of something called the Abortion Control Act. I'm not going to go over all of this because I do want to get to some of the things that have been happening more recently. But the biggest thing to know is that the Abortion Control Act actually sits in the criminal code in Pennsylvania. It's not actually sit in the health code, which is where you would think it would sit. It's in the criminal code, which is how you know what Pennsylvania feels about abortion. But you're looking at a 24-hour waiting period. You have insurance and Medicaid restrictions. You have this BS mandatory counseling that has to be provided. And of course, a 24-week ban. And I'm happy to send out these slides and also just chat with anyone about access, but I want to get to some of the good things that we'll be talking about too. First, some more bad stuff in the first 10 days of the Trump regime. You had a number of things happening. This was just in the first 10 days. Reproductive rights removed from the internet. Thankfully, it sits in the archive, in the Internet Archive, so it's still there if you know how to get it. Also, 23 people who were convicted under the Freedom of Access to Clinic entrances. These are the really gross and dangerous protesters that protest people as they're trying to access care. They were pardoned, including people that were involved in the January 6th insurrection. So that's great. Global gag rule was reinstated, which withholds money for overseas organizations that refer to abortion. You have an executive order that enforces the Hyde Amendment. The Hyde Amendment mandates that no federal funds can be used for abortion. So when people say that your taxpayer dollars are being used to provide abortions, it actually is not. That is not true because of the Hyde Amendment. And then, of course, there is executive orders. The certain sex does not include gender. And then, in the first 10 days, the Trump regime was out there at the March for Life as well. Our latest attack, and you heard a little bit from Mark, look at Medicaid and Title X. I'll start with Title X, nation's only family planning program. In Pennsylvania, Planned Parenthood get about $1.6 million of pass-through funding from the state family planning councils. So federal government withheld some of these funds to the family planning councils because of the DEI language that is found on some of our websites. So when we say that we provide care regardless of this. That was flagged, DEI language, and then they decided to withhold funds. This is something that's currently in process. Funds have already been withheld, and we are working with our partners, family planning councils, et cetera, to kind of backfill some of those funds. On the Medicaid side, that is currently what is in the process of being voted on. That reconciliation vote could come as early as May 19th, in about a week, explicitly saying that we want to defund Planned Parenthood, which again would be a massive blow to healthcare in Pennsylvania. They're going to do this through federal budget reconciliation process by banning Planned Parenthood from receiving Medicaid funds. So this is aside from the $715 billion in proposed Medicaid cuts. They just want to cut Planned Parenthood right out of the program, which is just a true assault on our freedom, right? Because folks should have the ability to choose their and yes, I am biased, but Planned Parenthood does provide the most compassionate care around. And people should be able to go to a doctor that they're familiar with and happy with. And we also have good colors too. Like, who doesn't want to go into like a friendly pink space? So that is what is on the table right now. Again, this is all about ideology too. It is not about fiscal responsibility. It is about tax cuts for billionaires. Because doing this cut would actually increase the deficit by $300 million. That's what the Congressional Budget Office is predicting. And again, that potential vote could come as early as May. On to the good stuff. In state, we have the Contraception Access for All Act. It is prime sponsored by Representative Leanne Kruger out of Delaware County, actually a district where I grew up in. So we love Rep. Kruger. This is a bill that has been continued to over and over the past 4 or 5 years. Last session, it passed the House with bipartisan support, which was really great. And like most bills in Pennsylvania, it die because the Senate is more worried about, discriminating against trans kids that will help Pennsylvanians right now. So we are very excited about the introduction to the full floor. It's on the House calendar for June 2nd for second consideration, which means we'll likely have a full floor vote on June 3rd. And it requires insurance companies to cover all FDA-approved contraceptives. No copays, no out-of-pocket costs. A couple other things to highlight here is that it does provide 12-month dispensing. After you get a 3-month trial period, you can then get a 12-month prescription, which is really great, especially in Pennsylvania, where sometimes you got to drive a long way just to go to the doctor. Being able to get it for telehealth for a year or just, in one visit for a year is great. And it also protects employers from having a religious exemption if you are using birth control for medical reasons like endometriosis, things like that. So it's a great bill, really excited about it, and a couple things that we can do, and I'll throw these things into the chat as well. So let your legislators know to vote yes on HB 1140. Again, that vote will be June 3rd. We expect full Democratic support, and we would love to see like 40 to 50 Republicans voting yes on this as well. Last session, we had about 30 Republicans, which was really great. And then obviously we need to put a little extra pressure to take this up in the Senate. Birth control access is like overwhelmingly popular. In our lifetime, about 9, 10 women will use some form of birth control in their life. It should not cost money to need access to birth control. And then on the Medicaid, again, I'll drop these links in the chat, just making sure that we're telling our federal members of Congress to defend Medicaid and Planned Parenthood. The calls and emails are working. There are many of you on this call as well that are in that Medicaid working group that are putting a lot of pressure on folks like Ryan McKenzie, Bresnahan, Fitzpatrick. And Fitzpatrick has been very vocal, and so is Bresnahan to an extent, about how they don't like these Medicaid cuts, but now we need them to actually vote for it and make sure that they are doing that. The other thing that you should be doing is just talking about this stuff. I think there's a lot of in the weeds things that get a little dreary and really detail oriented. Just talking to our friends and our spheres of influence about these things that are happening to our neighbors, it's going to be really important for more and more people to kind of build this movement and understand what is going on. So I will pause there. Thanks for listening. I see a lot of friends on the call, and we will be around for questions. I will pass it back to Jeff.
Thanks so much, Adam, and thanks for sharing the positive news about House Bill 1140 in the midst of so much of an onslaught against some of the rights that are so important to all of us. I did invite folks to put questions in the chat. If you have a question for Adam or you have a question for our next guest, Gillian, we'll be happy to have you put them there, and we'll get to as many of these as we can. As usual, we always commit to wrapping up these meetings by 2 p.m. at the latest, and even a little bit earlier if we wrap up ahead of time. I don't see any questions right now, but I do see some expressions of gratitude for Adam, and Adam's got some information for you. You can click there to take action to tell your rep to vote yes on House Bill 1140. Thanks, Adam. We'll keep an eye out for more questions. Looks like we got one question here right now. We'll go to this one quickly. Clara asks, are there any Dems who support these cuts? Any Democratic legislators who support these cuts? Adam, do you know?
Not in Pennsylvania. I am not aware federally across the nation if there are any squishy Dems, but not in Pennsylvania.
Great. Thanks so much. And a great little thank you note there from Jess Britton, our friend at In This Together Northeast PA. We're really glad to have their support here too. On that note, we'll turn it over to Gillian from Better Pennsylvania. Gillian.
Hi. So like Jeff said, I'm the Deputy Director of Better Pennsylvania, and our lane is, generally speaking, economic prosperity. And today, I'm actually here in my capacity as a board member for Fairness PA, because there are some big things going on around LGBTQ plus equality. I think, first of all, you may have seen this past week a bill, SB 9 is its actual name is the Save Women's Sports Act. It is for sure simply an anti-trans bill designed to discriminate against trans children. That bill passed the Senate. I think that, we can know certainly that is not going to get picked up in the House, so it is dead in the water. However, it is important to think about the people that voted for it, including squishy Democrats, as Jen noted in the chat. There were 5 of those Democrats. One was Marty Flynn, Lisa Boscola, Christine Tartaglione, Nick Miller, and James Malone, the newly elected state senator from Lancaster. I watched that floor debate, and it was incredibly apparent to me that the way that we talk about trans people and the issues that trans people face is incredibly important going forward. And frankly, I think that one of the biggest things that we can do is just simply continue to point out how very strange the Republican obsession is with other people's genitals, most especially children, but really anyone. Because that is not the only anti-trans bill in the pipe in the Senate or in the House. The ones in the House will never see the light of day under a Democratic majority, but the ones in the Senate will be used to obstruct actual work from happening. As Senate Minority Leader Jay Costa pointed out, he listed a whole variety of things that they could have been talking about. Langer Holt voted for it. That he could have been, every Republican voted for it. they could have been talking about, but instead we're spending time on this. And, you know, obviously Medicaid. It's incredibly, we're in an incredibly difficult position right now. And there are a lot of things that we could be doing, not this. Next month, Fairness PA, along with some really amazing volunteers from around the state, along with Action Together NEPA, Pennsylvanians Together, and you know, I'm sure a growing list of co-sponsors will be doing a lobby day in the Capitol on June 3rd to support, excuse me, the reintroduction of the Fairness Act. So if you're not familiar, HB 300 was the previous Fairness Act. And in Pennsylvania, it is still legal to discriminate against a person in, you know, matters of housing and employment based on their sexual orientation, or gender presentation. And that's not okay. It's simply not okay. Those, like, who we are as people should not stop us from getting housing. You know, and I think that we don't necessarily think about it. Yeah, the Fairness Act action is on June 3rd. And I'll throw the link in the chat to sign up. We will be lobbying legislators at 11 and 1. We'll do lunch in between. And additionally, there will be a drag show, a fun, family-friendly, educational drag show in the rotunda of the state capitol. That will be performed by Central PA Drag and Variety, which is a nonprofit. I'm so excited about this because I think that it's really important for folks to see that, you know, drag is not, or doesn't have to be, you know, scandalous or illicit. This is performance, and, you know, it can be tailored to many different audiences. And so we're very excited to help bring that to the Capitol. But, you know, one of the most important things, right, is going to speak to some of those legislators that we know are not with us yet on our issues for one reason or another. So, for example, right, Senator Malone was a vocal supporter of LGBTQ equality as a candidate for state senate. And, you know, I would like to believe that in his heart he still is. But unfortunately, people sometimes make votes based on political strategy that isn't necessarily great strategy. And so it's incredibly important that folks come and talk to, especially their legislators, to say, you know, this is important to me because even if you are not a member of the LGBTQ plus community, because it's good for legislators to see that you don't have to be a part of the community to support the community, to believe that we're all humans who deserve dignity and respect, and that shouldn't be that difficult. I don't think that we should have to go to our Capitol and explain that to legislators, but here we are. But, you know, there are also a whole number of bills that I think it's really important that we could take the opportunity as well to, you know, ask the appropriate legislators to make sure that they get to the floor to see a vote. For example, there is a bill that was introduced to remove gender from birth certificates. There's a bill that was introduced both in the House and a House version and a Senate version, as it happens, a prohibition against the LGBTQ plus panic defense, which, yes, in Pennsylvania, we still have to prohibit. Which, if you don't know, that is, this person attacked me Or, well, this person was near me and they're gay and I'm scared, so I hit them, is the most basic form of that. It's ridiculous that we should have to do that, but we do. There are bills about HIV, improving Pennsylvanians' access to HIV prevention, protecting LGBTQ individuals from discrimination in the credit service industry, and so many more. And, we need to see those bills get, a hearing on the floor, including one that I think is also very, very important is dying with dignity, affirming gender identity and death certificates. I think we here all know certainly that the LGBT community is not just young people. We have elders too. And, everybody should be affirmed through the full span of their life. And so I think that it is, number one, really heartening to me to see that there is such a broad spectrum of really fantastic bills. But we need to make sure that they get heard, that they get voted on, and that if they, certainly we know that for the most part, the bills coming out of the House that are pro-LGBTQ equality will probably die in the Senate, and the anti-LGBTQ equality ones will probably die in the House. But every time that we have the opportunity to talk to our legislators, to make sure that they understand why these are important to real people, it's important to, yes, thank you, Kristen, removing the requirement to publish notice of name changes in the newspaper. That is a big one. I can tell you personally, I have a trans daughter. And when we sat down with our lawyer to work through, the legal process of the name change, which there's also a bill about streamlining that process, and turning it into an administrative application instead of like a court order, that, she had to decide whether she would have her name published or whether we would try to ask for an exemption because she's a minor. My daughter is very proud of who she is, and she said, I don't care, just do it. But that is a scary proposition for a lot of people, and I think it's understandable. So, the more that we can come out and talk to our legislators and help them understand these very personal experiences, the better off that we'll be, the LGBTQ community will be, and the more likely we are to get legislation across the finish line, like the Fairness Act, which is long overdue. So that is June 3rd. The first lobbying starts at 1. And you'll excuse me because I was trying to get the link, but then it's not agreeing with me. Hang on, I got it. Okay. And I would love to see everybody there. It's going to be a fantastic day. And so just thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Gillian. And it's really exciting to hear about everything that Fairness PA has planned coming up on Tuesday, June 3rd. I will try to make a point of being at the Capitol that day if I can be, because it's obviously going to be a really important day in terms of action in the General Assembly, but even more important, the action that's going on with people and Pennsylvanians coming together to stand up for people's rights and people's basic freedoms. I'm looking in the chat here. There's a lot of support for both of you, and for Planned Parenthood, and for Fairness PA, and obviously for Better Pennsylvania as well. So great to see so many allies from across Pennsylvania weighing in and expressing their support. I don't see a question at the moment, but if somebody else on the team here sees one, let me know, and we'll go straight to that. And there's another message of support for Fairness PA. It looks like Action Together Northeast PA is excited to co-sponsor that one too. So, there, I think we see Kristen Volchansky has a hand up. Kristen, I know you here. I just unmuted your line. If you want to ask your question directly, we'll do that.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, Gillian. Thank you for all that you're doing for a great presentation today. My question, and I feel bad asking us this way, but unfortunately, I've seen at the school district level that very often one of the tactics where we're successful in stopping really cruel policies like this is when things come down to money and insurance. And so I'm wondering, has the school board association or school districts or school boards weighed in on what the implications of SB 9 would be for them? Because when I read the bill, I'm like, this is just a blanket open invitation for pretty much anyone with a loose connection to a public school to engage in a legal action against the school or potentially an individual. So I'm just wondering, like, have schools or school board associations said anything on this issue about what this would actually, the position this is putting school districts in?
Not to my knowledge, although I would have to look into it. But that's a really, really good question, because yeah, I mean, one of the things that was mostly missing during the floor debate was any discussion of how a bill like SB 9 would actually be executed. It's Senator Maria Collette did for a moment talk about how, sort of unwieldy and ridiculous it would be. But, I think the question over and over again is, who is going to be checking your child's genitals? Which is, again, I think an insane question to have to ask, but it is the question. Is it going to be, are you going to have a doctor do it? Is it going to be a coach, a school nurse, a teacher? Who's doing it? And, and you're also right in that one of the things that was really overlooked by, that's right, Adam. Like, the problem is it probably won't be a school nurse because lots of schools only have part-time school nurses if they have one. Plus Medicaid cuts will be another drain on that. So, who's going to do it? And, as you pointed out, there is then a legal liability on hand, because any parent who's mad that some other girl beat their daughter at a sport can say that girl is too tall and her shoulders are too broad, and I don't think she looks girly enough, and I don't believe she's a girl. What then? So this is not an issue that will just affect trans students, right? It will also affect cisgender students. Not that Republicans appear to care, although several of them did take this opportunity to make sure that they got to use the word patriarchy in a bad way, which is, I'm sure, new for them. When Doug Mastriano talks about how he's fighting the patriarchy, I have difficulty taking that seriously. But yeah, no, I think that's an excellent question. And I'm definitely gonna look into that.
I know PSBA did not make a statement. They tend to not be making statements about important issues these days.
Yeah.
PSEA, the teacher union for most of the state, did come out in opposition to the bill, although they did not go as far as to include it in their endorsement processes.
Thanks for addressing that. Yeah, we have a couple questions here in the chat, and I'm going to ask them because I think they're helpful for a lot of organizations and a lot of folks who want to get involved. I'm going to do two of them here really quickly. One is from Clara asking, Unitarian Universalist Justice PA is interested in co-sponsoring. Is it too late? And here's another question from someone else, from Jason. What's the best way to keep up with these issues? So first one about co-sponsoring.
Number one, I am so excited and not too late at all. We would still love to have anybody join us as a sponsor on this. Sorry, something something in my computer is making noise. There it is. Okay. Yes, we would love to have you. And so I did message her, I did DM'd her and with my information. Yay. And second, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky. It's at Fairness Pen, or excuse me, Fairness PA. The website is fairnesspen.org. And I will try to find a link to our email subscription and throw it in the chat while
Great.
somebody else asks a question.
Thanks. Adam, any thoughts you have on how folks can keep up with these issues from Planned Parenthood perspective?
Yeah. So read our newsletter. I write it personally. I hate reading newsletters myself, so I try to keep it as brief as possible. I break it down into a couple sections, so it could take you 30 seconds to read, or it could take you an hour to read, depending on how engaged you want to be that week, because I know it is very hard to distill all the information. When we think about sexual and reproductive health, I do the best to distill information into a handy little newsletter for Pennsylvania. Aside from that, I think like the Women's Law Project has a really great newsletter that they send out periodically. I really like Erin in the Morning for trans issues, and I like Abortion Every Day for Jess Valenti, also for abortion access, sexual and reproductive health things.
Thanks so much, Adam. And I see you put a number of links there in the chat. Gillian did as well. I would encourage folks who want to get more involved and learn more to click on those and follow those. I do see Sandra Miller has her hand up, so I'm going to call on you, Sandra. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry to ask a question if you were trying to wrap up.
Okay.
We're I work with the Coalition for Pennsylvanians for Welcoming Inclusive School, and Adam and Fairness PA are partners, and we're just always at this balancing act. And I know there's a lot of great orgs that are on here. We have a tracker, and we have organizations that regularly ask us about what bills we're tracking and whether or not to talk about some of the really harmful bills. How do you guys as organizations balance that out? I noticed none of you gave air today to any of the really bad bills that are out there. Is that going to that's been our philosophy this year, is not to even put them on the tracker so that you can't even find them? Is that still what people are thinking is the right thing to do as an organization that is trying to balance everything? We'd like to take the lead from some of your experience.
Adam, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I think with bad bills, especially in the House, we build relationships with both our coalition partners and legislators to be able to call up someone and be like, hey, do we need to worry about this? No, okay, great. And then we ignore it because that is part of their strategy, right? They want to throw as many horrible things to be cruel and evil for, marginalized, minoritized populations as possible, and they want to distract us. On the other hand, like, we knew FB9 was going to be a big thing. We knew that, a couple months ago. So around that, many organizations stepped up, did a whole lot of lobbying to make sure that, one, as many Democrats as possible were doing the right thing, and two, to make sure, again, that didn't go anywhere in the House, which it won't. But yeah, I think with bad bills and things like that, it is really easy to get bogged down. But just working in coalition with other groups who are also in the know, because there are like criminal justice bills and things like that that I don't pay a whole lot of attention to, but I know who does. So I'm able to ask them, like, hey, what's up with this? Is it something we should be worried about? Something that we need to kind of like call the Avengers together and fight against together?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That is yeah, that's basically would be my answer is, occasionally there's a strategic purpose to drawing attention to a bad bill. But yeah, for the most part, in our current situation, if there's a bad bill in the House, the odds are it's not coming up. And, you know, we can always check on that. We know it will come up in the Senate because they are the way that they are. But, you know, even to that extent, right, it's just like making sure that we get as few people to vote yes on them or no, as is appropriate, as possible.
Appreciate that. And I appreciate all the work that you do. And we would like to include that on our Facebook page and our information from PA Wins. So make sure you shoot that out so that we can, you know, share that with all of our members. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your interest and your question, Sandra. This is really helpful and great to see so many ways that folks want to come together and to really push for the kind of legislation that we want to see. And you got the email address there with PA Wins. I don't see any other questions in the chat. And we are closing in on the end of our hour here in a few more minutes. But again, we do want to remind everybody June 3rd is going to be a big day at the state capitol. Again, thank you so much to both of our special guests here today, Adam from Planned Parenthood, Gillian, who's representing Fairness PA and who's also with our partners at Better Pennsylvania. I want to thank all of you for making the time to join us here for these Policy Action Zoom meetings. Again, we do a federal Policy Action Zoom meeting, and today we mixed it up a little because there's so much stuff going on, but that will be coming up again on the first Thursday of June. That's when we do our federal ones at 1 p.m. And we will be back next month on the third Thursday. I'm just going to tell you right now, with the budget deadline coming up at the end of June, I would expect some focus on some budget-related issues at our June meeting for state policy. Again, thank you to all of my colleagues here at the Pennsylvania Policy Center, Mark Steer, who shared with us a little bit earlier. Thank you also to Adrian Stanley, who handles all of the tech for us here. A number of my other colleagues are in the room here for showing their support as well. Thank you to all of you. Again, thanks to everybody for all of the work that you do every day to make Pennsylvania the best kind of state that it can be and to fight for the policies and for the people who really matter in Pennsylvania. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.